RC 25 school board meeting, November 21st. And if you could all please rise and we'll move by the podium.
Like allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. John,
Yep, Mr. Burgess,
here.
Mr. Goff,
Here.
Mr. Nealon,
Here.
Miss Foster,
Here.
Mr. Wentworth.
Here.
Frazier.
Here.
Absent is, Mr. Foster and, Miss Dow.
We have one.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Very good. At this time, it'd be time for public participation. Does anybody here from the public that would like to address the board? I'm welcome to step up to the podium. For those folks that may be, watching at home, and they'd like to email us public comments, they can do that at publiccomment@rsu25.org or phone in for public comment at 307-8099. At this time, it'd be time for seeing nobody rushing to the front. We'll move on and take those calls or emails as they come in. Adjustments to the agenda.
Adjustments to the agenda, I do have some. If you could please add to L1A, and they should be an adjusted agenda in your packet. For Teresa Van Pratt, who's leaving us as the elementary Jewett Miles Lane Library Tech. Also Lisa Chipman, please add nomination for her to be custodian for us. And Derek Karen, robotics volunteer.
Very good. Approval of the minutes.
The minutes for October 17th in your packet.
I move that we approve the minutes of October 17, 2023 as presented.
Second.
And a first and a second, is there any questions or comments around the minutes? All those in favor? Any opposed?
Here.
Well, not opposed. Thank you.
All right, so we got 5.5.
5.5, right. 5 in a space case.
All right.
Well, thank you.
That should be awesome.
Yeah, that's
Moving on.
I was taking a minute to look at the minutes.
There you go. Communication.
communications. We have a very nice letter in there from Tony Reed, program officer, Maine Municipal Bank, saying that we paid off our municipal bank revolving renovation loan, and that's for the high school project that did the facade. So that was very nice.
It's a wonderful project.
It was a wonderful project.
All the way around for what the community got for their investment.
What they thought they were gonna have to pay originally.
Yeah, 8.3 million we were able to do for 2 point.
Yeah, that was a
And it
great,
just
great
seems like it
project.
was yesterday. And it's,
10 years ago yesterday.
ooh,
That made pretty drastic improvements to the heat stability in the school, right?
we had an R1.
We actually have an R value now.
Yeah,
Before we just had a slowing down value.
But our air filtration was great.
Yeah, we've right there, not a problem. That loan, just to point out some changes though, that loan that we received revolving renovation, we've got some more of those came in this year. At that time, we only had 32% forgiven. Now we're over 50% forgiven, so. Okay. You also had a, application for food service equipment was approved, and thank you very much to April Hall for putting that in, and, there are some times when they can apply for grants for equipment upgrades, and she did. Now we'll be adding a freezer up at the middle school. It would be a standalone chest freezer, upright freezer, I'm sorry, that would replace out into the cafeteria, but it is lockable. Okay, and that's what we have. We did get a letter on adult ed subsidy, 47,000, but that didn't make it into the packet. You'll see it next.
very good. Anybody, any questions around correspondence? Communications? Okay, moving ahead, superintendent's report.
I sent you my report. You should have it previously. Happy to answer any questions. Other than that, I just want to highlight, we did have a meeting of the Educational Service Center, Hancock Educational Service Center. Reviewed, the ongoing, it's been a very successful year. And we did negotiate with the owners of the bus garage, and we have a proposal for a lease extension for 5 years, and that was approved by the Service Center Board that we signed that. It was an increase of $250 per month, very, very reasonable increase, and they will hold that number for 5 years. We only had one concern, and that was on the heater in the third bay, which is the wash bay. They put in a new heater, and it wasn't enough to meet the needs of that area. So we brought that up to them within 24 hours. They already had a company out there looking to install a second heater. So they've been wonderful landlords. They think we're fantastic tenants, so it's a pretty good relationship. So all around. Yeah. Answer any other questions you may have.
Board chairs report, I have nothing for this week. Moving on to committee reports, curriculum committee.
Okay, we did meet this time around here, and I'm sure Christina will talk about a lot of this, but we spoke with Audrey Kanan, who is the person in charge of our remote program. And she kind of gave us an update on the second year. They've actually increased the enrollment to 28 students, which is awesome. Some of those students are taking at least one in-person class, and they've started doing some community partnerships. They're really kind of, even though they're doing these remote classes, make them feel like they're part of the community too, which is really nice. And then Jim Boothby gave us a ChatGPT demonstration and information, and he did most of the planning for the teachers in the room that night. And they were begging him to print that stuff off for them. And we learned that the difference between the paid ChatGPT and the free one is the amount of data that you can pull based on years. So like the free one only goes back to 2021, I think. And then, or is it 2022?
2020.
2022. So if you want data from 2023, you have to get the paid version. But we're starting to talk about how we could use this as a tool to help our teachers, to help our students, and really adapt instead of resist, because it's here and it's not going anywhere.
So was your presentation on math facts or?
We did talk about that. That usually comes up in curriculum.
Yeah, where another validation of my position on learning math facts. ChatGPT said absolutely, that's a necessity.
Yeah, it was a step to one of the things that we looked at was to know their math facts. It's funny.
And so happened that Mr. Ward made my day and forwarded me an article from Ed Weekend, was it? Yeah, talking about the importance of math facts. So,
Yeah,
people are
so that did
catching
come
up
up.
to some of my thinking, so
Taking 14 years.
it's taken a while, but they're coming around. I'm pretty pleased.
Jim, you've always been on the cutting edge.
Yeah, cutting edge of something, right?
Christina updated us on what happened in this board meeting last month, which was very quick because we were all there anyway. And then we had an update to the science and math curriculum work that started. And we had a few district, actually, you didn't even give us any district updates, did you? I think we skipped that part because we did spend so long on ChatGPT. Our meeting went really long, but it was really fun and very interesting meeting. So. Our next meeting date is going to be the 14th, December 14th at 6:30.
Is there any questions for the curriculum committee? Anyone? Great. Moving forward, finance committee.
Finance committee met before this meeting. We are right where we expect to be at this point in the year. In the packet, there is one line item that's shown incorrectly. It wound up being recorded as a transportation item. It should have been listed as debt service, so it kind of threw off how that looks, but everything is exactly what it's supposed to be. Nothing is 1,335% of budget.
Very good. Any questions around the finance committee? Great. Policy committee, we did meet, continuing our conversation around the Hall and Wall of Fame. Had a very good conversation, and we're going to continue that conversation. Chris Jones was in attendance with us, who has been kind of spearheading over the past few years, a number of years since inception of this the academic, the athletic hall of fame, so. Good conversation, and we're gonna continue that with the idea of bringing back something to the board, and hopefully next month.
Jamie did a really good job, right?
But really gonna try to start
Really good.
wrapping this up.
Do you use ChatGPT?
I actually did,
The waiver.
We talked about that.
yeah, as a foundation.
Is excellent.
It's actually a nice tool to use to get a rough draft, help you organize thoughts. And then you have to go back and obviously edit it,
Tweak it,
tweak it.
Yeah.
Reorganize
fit
it how
it,
you want
fit
it.
it,
Right,
I'm actually using it to put together a grant application, my own. Very useful.
cutting edge.
Any questions on policy? Facilities and grounds.
Yes, facilities, we met on November 9th. What we talked about has probably been updated. Anthony's here if he wants to correct anything I say. I'm just gonna go through the bulletized outline of it. We talked about the BMS athletic field, the softball scoreboards prepped and ready to install, including help from Jim Morrill. The irrigation was shut down and winterized. Sports fields will come in and top dress and oversee early in the early summer months when the varsity soccer and football fields are done. So, we talked about the VHS softball field dugouts are in process. Scott, can you update us on that?
I'm too tired. Well, we worked Friday, Monday, yesterday, today, and we're gonna work again next Tuesday, and they're pretty much closed in. They look fantastic, a great job, and I make a heck of a gopher, just back and forth.
I'm more than a gopher.
Jim's been doing the math because he knows his math facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any math we had to do.
Yeah, Scott held the dumb end of the tape.
Yeah, I never even realized that was the dumb end of the
Yeah,
tape.
somebody's gotta hold it.
Now I know what it is. You know, we promised that what happened on the softball field was the so.
I'm not saying anymore.
So then we discussed the BIMS with the Jewett School. Steve Ferguson was on site. One of the days finishing the balancing of the pumps and a couple of rooms for airflow. VHS, both boilers are up and running and have been tuned on natural gas. Steve going to phase 2, kicking off the kickoff meeting with BIMS was November 15th. How did that go, Jim?
We're gonna actually report out on item
Okay.
4 of the agenda.
All right. Bucksport Performing Arts, the Plain Auditorium met with Bacchus to discuss the upgrades and safety concerns and talked about a plan to present to the Bucksport Infrastructure Committee about funding.
That report happened, and there'll be a article that the town council will be taking up. I don't know if it's the next meeting or the following one after that, but there is going to be a request for money to help, bring the rigging up to code.
Rich gave me the date, and there's so many other numbers running around in my head.
And the Miles Lane varsity soccer field, playable length of field, that was a nice little topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah.
Enough said on that?
Not said, but there will be,
So was there an
an
official?
opportunity for the next superintendent to work with Anthony to make that happen next summer.
Is there an official size and is that new?
There's an official size according to the National Federation of High School Sports, which requires a minimum field size of 100 yards long by 55 yards wide. We were 100 yards by 62 yards, but there is a footnote in the MPA soccer bulletin that says the fields for playoff games must be 110 yards by 60 yards. That is not a rule that has been closely adhered to for the 20+ years here in Bucksport, nor many other fields. But it is a rule.
So
And
weird that they wouldn't just have the same rule for regular as they would for playoff.
it sounds like an echo of what we discussed before, but I think that was almost verbatim what I said. Probably about that same tone.
Really?
Kind of curious, but.
Yeah. and it's-
So that was called to our attention, so we adjusted the best we could,
You'll be doing that.
and we gave the
It
team
was called to
options.
my attention in Tabata class and I was like, I don't know how long the field is. Talking to the superintendent.
It was either gonna be extended the field to hundred and seven. We, not really me, Caleb, got the field extended to hundred and seven yards, or the option was we move it up to the middle school field.
Yeah.
And we can certainly make that 140 yards long. I don't care, but so all taken care of and will be official next year.
Wonderful.
Some work will need to be done adjusting of the school board location, but we will not have to remove the center point, which is where all the lights are gauged to, so. I have great faith in our facilities director who will help that move forward nicely.
That's all I have to say. Anything you want to update?
I'll rely on
Okay. That's it, facilities.
Any questions from us around the facility? Moving forward, HCTC.
Well, I attended an advisory dinner at HCTC and sat in on our welding program, which is headed by Joel Pelletier. I think usually Jim attends these meetings. Very interesting because there were several representatives from various welding companies there to discuss. The discussion was around what, if anything, Joel could do to better prepare these students for the jobs in the welding field. And they were very, very pleased with what Joel does, and also very pleased with the equipment that we are able to, that's available to us. Some of our students went to take a test somewhere, and some of the welders were so old, they went, we don't even know how to use this antique stuff. I mean, we are up to date and everything, these old fashioned welders, so they were very happy. Some of the discussion was around north of, from the Bangor area. Our area deals mostly with aluminum welding because of docks, trailers and things like that, more than Southern Maine, which surprised me. So they said a lot of our students need to be involved in aluminum welding. And I also discovered that even though many of the students leave Joel's program with licenses, basically that gives them an in to get into the companies, a foot in the door, because the companies say, then we will train them the way we want them to weld for us. But they've already have that knowledge, they already have these licenses, so they're gonna be a step ahead of anybody else that doesn't. So it was really interesting. We went beyond the allotted time and didn't even think about, slowing down. It was very interesting.
What are they welding in Southern Maine? Gold?
Oh, there's all kinds of things. And they were, yeah.
It's just the industry concentration,
Yeah,
there is aluminum welding happening
Yeah,
down there.
but not,
but there's more recreational
From
stuff
central
going
Maine,
on up there.
northern and down east Maine, there are more companies that are doing like aluminum tanks,
Yeah,
docks, gangways.
Southern Maine, you're looking more at industrial applications from Bath Iron Works, Portsmouth Naval
Yeah.
Shipyard.
Right.
Those kind of applications. So they're more welding steel and pipe welding
Yeah.
rather than aluminum welding and stratus welding.
okay.
exactly. So it was interesting.
And do we focus on welding different types of materials?
Yes.
So they could really go anywhere?
Yes.
The kiddos it's a self-paced program in many ways.
Yeah.
And if they want to learn to do aluminum, once they pass certain steps, they can do aluminum, they can do, they've done some pipe here as well, so. If the kids are hungry, the program allows them plenty of growth.
You'll take them as far as they want to go.
Okay.
And one other thing, HCTC has $23,000 to spend with a focus on middle schools. And in the past, they've offered weekend camps, summer camps. So I don't know, do you go down to some of the HCTC meetings, principal meetings? I don't know. But he said they'll have further discussion on how else they can use that money to inform a lot of middle schoolers at an earlier age of what they offer. Yeah.
Any questions, Scott, on HCTC? Move on to old business, which we have none. And then on to item 12, for new business. Personnel.
L1A, we have resignations, teacher Sarah Carey, middle Clouds Lane special education teacher. Support personnel Kaya Wilson, special ed tech. And you just got that resignation in your packet from Teresa Van Prey, Clouds Lane Library Ed Tech.
I move we accept their resignation with regret.
Second. Okay, you have a first and a second. Any questions, concerns around the nomination? Or retirement, excuse me? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Good, thank you. Nominations.
Nominations, we do have some, special education ed tech, Alice Canning, Karen Robinson, and Gabriel McBride, all for special education ed techs.
Gabrielle, just FYI.
What's that?
Gabrielle, so,
Gabrielle, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. And adult ed secretary, Ginger, is it Kegley? Kegley?
Yeah.
And we also, Mr. McGuire has identified Lisa Chipman for the vacant custodial position. For coaches, Alexander Sanborn, PMS cheering coach. Tiffany Beers as the freshman class advisor, for the class of 2027. And Derek Karen, volunteer for aquatics.
Well, I move that we accept the nominations for sport personnel and coaches and co-curricular as presented.
I second.
First and a second. Any questions around those? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, item 2, Buckville Middle School, school life happens outdoors.
Life happens outside, so. Mr. Fisher.
Good evening. All right, so first I just want to thank you guys for adding me to the agenda last minute. I had reached out to Aaron, asked.
He was sharing and then he revoked.
No,
Nothing equal. No problem. All of
all right, hopefully it stays. I don't know. We'll see. So again, I reached out to Aaron sort of last minute, asking if I could present to you guys. This is something that I spent a lot of time on and that our school and community spent a lot of time on. So I did think it was a really positive thing to share with you guys, because so often I know you deal with a lot of negative stuff and feedback that you have to worry about. And so this is something really positive that I think you guys can sort of get a handle on. And so when I first got hired here back in the summer, I immediately went to Aaron and asked him if he'd be willing to participate in this. And it was a school-wide thing. And I already took it upon myself to pay the $50 registration fee for an organization called Teens to Trails. And I've worked with them before at previous schools that I've worked with. And he was 100% on board. And it was initially then just a week-long challenge. And the concept was really simple. Just everyone in the school, students and staff, spend as much time as possible outside. Track your minutes. Every single minute counts, whether it's spending time with family, eating outside, walking to and from school, going hunting. I know on youth weekend, you know, a lot of kids went with their parents to do that stuff. Taking your dog out for a walk, camping, fishing, all that stuff, outdoor classes, you name it, it counts. And so students, we were part of a statewide competition with middle schools across the state of Maine, and the top 3 schools based on number of minutes per student. So they averaged it out so it was fair. And the top 3 schools in the state would win $1,000 for future outdoor programming. And so students and staff were asked to track their minutes, tabulate their minutes, and report their minutes. I used a spreadsheet with the help of Allison Braley that auto tabulated everything. And so these were some of the results. These are some 7th grade students on health and wellness walks, mindfulness walks, and these are some of my students. A lot of these pictures are 8th grade students because that's who I spent time with. And I tried to get some other photos, but I couldn't quite piece it together. And you're gonna see here a lot of kids having a lot of fun. So there was outdoor learning that happened. I was out on a walk with one of my homeroom kids, and he was just being a kid and looking for salamanders under rocks on the trails, and he was finding them, and he knew exactly where to look, and he was super excited about it. I brought my social studies class out to do some brainstorming for a conversation about human rights, and they found that they were thinking a little bit easier outside and having conversations easier. Miss Murphy took her 8th grade science class out to do glucose testing on plants in the outdoor classroom. We used the pizza oven for the applied learning lab. And so all of this counted as minutes that were really valuable. I went outside with my outdoor club and brought in my backpacking equipment, and we had a tent setup competition to see who could set up the tent the fastest. And these were easy freestanding tents, but you would think that they had no clue what they were doing. It was quite entertaining. I took some video. I didn't add it in here, but it was very entertaining to watch them try to do that. And thankfully, my equipment survived that little endeavor. I took all of my homeroom kids, or all of my 8th grade students, out to do community service. This was right after the events in Lewiston, and I told Jim this, that I was really grateful that we had school then. And I felt the need to do something positive with the kids after all that was happening, and to feel like we were making a difference and having a positive impact with all that bad stuff happening. And so we just went and picked up as much garbage as we could around the facilities. And we went all across the athletic fields, all over different schools at BMS. We went down to the high school, we went to the soccer field, the football field. And so we picked up a lot of trash, and the kids were really enthusiastic about that. And some really great workers, too, some really good work ethic as well. We had our first outdoor movie night as part of the challenge. And so we did a screening of Nightmare Before Christmas right around Halloween time. And we probably had about 75 people attend. And that was really positive. Probably about 50 students, and then some parents and staff as well showed up. So that was really positive. Attention span sort of waned a little bit outdoors late at night with the middle schoolers, but it was okay. We kind of just rolled with it. And then I also tried to inspire kids. I went and did a sunrise hike on Great Pond Mountain, and then I tented outside in my yard, and I showed some of the kids this stuff, and that inspired them to go on hikes on their own. I had an 8th grade student who then took it upon herself to camp 2 nights with her younger siblings outside in her yard. And she came the next Monday to report her minutes, and she said, Mr. Bishop, we have 30 hours outside this weekend camping outside with my younger siblings. And that was really awesome to hear. And she had this huge smile on her face. So how much time did we spend outside? We spent a total of 286,741 minutes outside. That's the equivalent of 199 days spent outside collectively for the entire school in just 11-day time span. And you can see the breakdown of the minutes here. My 8th grade team really made a big push to get kids outside. So we did make the 101,000 plus minutes outside, but everyone got involved as well. And so that was really exciting to see. These are kind of hard to read, but just some staff response that students had better attitudes and were more engaged, that behavior was better. I know I talked to Erin and Ms. Vicky about behavior and reports of behavior, and that was decreased during the time that we were getting kids outside more. Enjoying the kids, seeing them be happier, getting to know them better in a different atmosphere, seeing them more engaged in their classwork, that they were willing to work harder in class to get a break outside, and that stimulated their learning more. I hope this works. I love this answer. And no, I don't know. That won't work. He was super enthusiastic. I just asked him what he liked most about being outside, and it said just the fresh air and the green. And like, how could you not like this stuff? And maybe you shouldn't forget the soundboard.
Try that again, sir.
Why is it good to be outside?
Because it kind of refreshes your brain, you know, and it's beautiful. Look at all the green grass and the green trees. It's awesome, man.
So that's like middle school in a nutshell right there. Just the raw enthusiasm, unbridled enthusiasm, and just the phrasing, like you couldn't put it any better than that. And just the thumbs up from the kids when I was taking them outside. And so these are some of the student responses, and there's been a lot of research about getting kids outside and the benefits of that. And I'm really grateful to be working in a district now that values being outside and getting kids outside and knowing what the impact it has on them. And these are all student responses. I surveyed the kids at the end of this, and I said, what impact did this have on you? And I fall asleep faster. I feel like I have more energy than usual, and overall, I just feel refreshed. I feel less tired than usual. I feel better than I did a couple weeks ago. I feel better about myself now. I feel much better than I usually do. I feel like I have more motivation to do things, and it makes me want to go outside more often. It's important to spend time outside since it's good for your body. The best part of being outside is being able to calm down and feel all your worries slowly wash away just for a little bit. So this positive, really positive 2 weeks that we spent outside, 11 days we spent outside. School felt more fun and engaging since sitting in the same classroom every day is boring sometimes. It felt nice to see a change of pace. I was more excited to go to school. We love hearing that. Being outside is fun and it does change you. I learned that I need to take care of myself by going outside, socializing and making friends and making connections with peers. Nature is healing you and nature wants to direct you in a path that you will understand. And so you can be more curious and explore and play outside. And I learned that I'm able to calm down way easier when I'm outside, listening to the wind blow and the trees rustling and listening to the wildlife around me. And this is probably my favorite one. Being outside makes me feel like a better person on the inside. And so really insightful comments from our middle school kids. They blow me away every single day, the insights that I get from them. I wasn't expecting that when I started to teach 8th grade. But we won $1,000 in the process as well, along with Wiscasset Middle School and then Perry. BMS is one of the top 3 schools in Maine. So we will be getting that money. And there is going to be a presentation with an oversized check from Unum and Teamster Trails representatives at our next school-wide assembly on December 8th, if anyone wants to stop by and be part of that. And also with your blessing, we're gonna contact media outlets and hopefully have some good publicity for that as well. So that's on the horizon. Student ideas for how to spend the money. This is overwhelming with new playground equipment. They really want like legitimate playground equipment or swings or something. These are still kids at heart and they really want a legitimate playground, not just like a slab of tar with some basketball hoops. So I don't know that needs to be this money, but just throwing it out there so it's on your radar when you're doing finance and budget work. But we have other ideas how to spend the money. A lot of them said zip lining or rope sports. That's very expensive to get up to UMaine rope sports. I don't know if we can do that for everyone, but maybe we can do a tiered thing. And then a school-wide outdoor field trip. So some really good ideas from the kids as well. And then lastly, I just want to update you. I just got this news today. I applied for a grant through Teamster Trails courtesy of LL Bean, and we were awarded $600 for that. And so this is how the money has to be spent this year. I'm trying really hard to revive the climbing wall, but it takes a lot. We had it inspected. I reached out to a certified inspector in Kittery. So I'll be in touch with people about that. But I have money now to do the 20-hour certified climbing wall instructor training. I have money now to do a 16-hour wilderness first aid course and to do the education trip leader training. So all that's necessary if I want to do anything on the water with kids or do overnights with the kids. So this is all setting up for future activities and getting kids outside so that we cover all our bases and that safety and risk management is taken care of as well. So really exciting stuff. And thank you for supporting it and being a district that values being outside. And hopefully this is just good momentum that we can build on for budgeting and maybe incorporating some of this stuff in the future. So if anyone has any questions.
Well, have you ever done this before?
I have not. This is a middle school only thing. So I've done an outdoor club at Edward Little High School. And that was pretty relaxed, pretty small group of kids who were getting outside anyway, but this is the first time doing this middle school challenge.
What did you learn from it?
I learned that kids really need to be outside and that learning, I think we do a disservice collectively as a country by having things in a very traditional sense.
Is there anything you might do different next time, or is this pretty much?
I'd probably try to make it a little more organized. I want to make it more inclusive. I found sometimes that there were some kids that maybe I would go out on the walks and maybe some kids couldn't do the walks. And so I want to find a way to make that more inclusive. Yeah, I have to think. I need to think about everything and process it and whatnot. Those are good questions. But I definitely do want to do it again. And the staff response was, I think, overwhelmingly that yes, we should continue to do this because it works with PBIS and social emotional learning and regulation as well. So I found that my students really enjoyed it. And now it's like I do a vote on whether or not they want to go outside or do this. And it's always like, we will do our work so that we can go outside, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes.
Do you do it in the winter time at all?
I do the outdoor club in the winter time. Once it snows, we'll get snowshoes out, we'll get cross-country skis out. Mr. McGeechan is going to take us ice fishing as long as the ice is thick enough and safe enough. There's a winter outdoor series through Teamster Trails where we do tobogganing for free at Camden Snow Bowl. There's gonna be reduced ski prices at Black Mountain if we can go there. And I'm gonna try really hard to get at least a small group, if not a bigger group, to Jackman to do the total eclipse on April 8th. And we can incorporate some.
That's so.
Yeah, the total solar eclipse is happening April 8th. And the path of totality is centered on Jackman. And so Teens to Trails is gonna offer some sort of collective thing for schools around the state. And so if we can get our kids, at least some of them out there.
Thank you for doing that. That's just
Yeah.
great.
So a lot of stuff on the horizon, but it's a lot of planning and a lot of work. So, thank you for being a part of it and for supporting it. I know I see Scott on the trails a lot, and he saw some of my outdoor kids there, and they were just being kids, and I was like, you guys just need some time, and they were like trying to break the ice in the vernal pool, and they were just having fun from fixing
They were
rocks.
trying
and
to make
doing
friends with
stuff.
Tommy.
They were trying to be friends with Tommy, and Tommy wasn't having it, so yeah, it was fun.
Follow up would be about climbing wall grips. My friend has like a couple hundred just sitting in boxes in this.
So the climbing wall itself is like all the grips are still on it. I need to locate the harnesses, I need to locate the ropes, I need to locate so it's really just getting this stuff together and then finding the last report, because I don't think it's been used in like 7 or 8 years.
I didn't know we had a climbing wall. That was when I was operating grips.
Yeah, so there's a 20-foot wall that's probably 20 feet high and 12 feet wide, with different pitches and stuff. Nick Tomasco sort of ran it when he was still working with the Y here, I think, is the report
That
that
was
I
the
got.
last time.
And so that's been a long time ago, and he lives out of state now, and so I'm trying to piece together where the equipment might be, and then trying to find last report, because I need the last report to give to the new inspector. But this is all kind of a work in progress, but if I can get this going this year, and I can get down to Trenton to do the CWI training, my goal is to be doing it because the kids are so hungry for it. At every grade level, they see the wall every day when they punch, and they're wondering, why can't we use this thing? But it takes a staff member to do it. And that's a great, I looked at the news clips about the skate park in town. And there are so many kids who don't do traditional sports who would really benefit from the climbing wall. And it's something that they can use and get outside in the future and be part of clubs, and that's not competitive. And so I find that to be really beneficial, the non-competitive aspect of the whole thing. So,
And it's a lifetime sport.
yeah.
It's something that goes beyond a team sport that most kids are gonna be done at the high school level, if not the collegiate level.
And it's developing brain patterns too, to see the stuff and to challenge yourself. And it's like it's a safe challenge by choice type of thing.
But there is teamwork within it, right? You still have teamwork.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, like if I'm belaying, and I'm coaching, that's the whole point of the CWI training. I could get belay certified
But the 10.
for way less money and less hours.
Right.
But this is like trying to like work so that I know that they can know that I can do it and that I can coach the people through.
Yeah, there is team in that.
So, yeah. Any other questions?
Just a comment. Thank you. That was a great presentation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
But I'm going to reach out to Nick and Moscow.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Good luck finding.
Like I said, I think he lives in Maryland. That's the last word that I got was, I'm sure if I get in touch with Bill, they'll be able to do that, but.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miles.
Yeah, thank you guys. And have a great Thanksgiving. Sorry, I'm not sticking around for the rest of this meeting.
That's okay.
Very convenient.
Yeah.
Nice place to be, outside.
The 2 days of parent teacher conferences were.
We're having a
Life
social
happens.
meeting.
A lot of inside.
Yeah.
But wait till.
Summertime.
Yeah.
Summertime meetings outside.
I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Well,
Great job. Thank you.
I'm ready. Moscow has been emailed.
Very good. Report out from the Hancock Educational Service Center collaborative meetings, on 11/16.
Go ahead, seeing how you're the chair of that committee.
That's right. That's right, Scott. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You don't show up for the meeting, this is what happens.
Yeah, I didn't bring my notes with me this evening, but, we met, as Mr. Boothby mentioned, we have the lease agreement with a topic of conversation. Everybody's very supportive of that. We've got some new board members, or Deb was joined us. So kind of giving an overview of those folks, and I'm trying to think what else that was the main topic.
Yeah, we also talked about the different, preventative maintenance schedule that the mechanics have in place. There's been a new lift installed in the garage. And that lift is only for passenger vehicles and pickups. It's not for the buses themselves. But the mechanics are doing services for the district's vans and trucks. For us, they just completed a preparation, maintenance on all of our plows, new cutting edges, make sure the lights are working and everything. So we're taking advantage of the whole facility, and it's working out very well. I think the upshot I take away is all the members are very satisfied.
I was just gonna say, I haven't heard a negative comment from
And-
bus drivers, school
And
superintendents.
as Sue Llewellyn reported out, our transportation director, we're having pretty good luck with attracting and retaining bus drivers. Also, it's where some of our surrounding communities haven't had that type of success, and I think it speaks a lot to what we're putting out for wages and benefits and the working environment. Working there with Sue and the mechanic.
Getting parts a lot easier for them than it used to be. They don't have to jump through as many hoops.
I think the other thing, Jim did an overview of the effect of the bus collaborative on RC 25 compared to the first student presentation that they wanted us to sign as a lease agreement, and we were quite a bit positive, much in the positive financially, and it's been very good for us, and I think the other communities are finding the same.
We came in last year, when you compare a first student bid to last fiscal year of that operation, 318,000 to the good. So that's a significant savings. One of the things that I'm working on with Sue Llewellyn is a equipment repurchase or purchase schedule, because that's one of the things you've got to have to keep in mind, that these buses are going to have a life of 10 to 12 years, 150 to 180,000 miles. So you're going to have to come up with a schedule of purchase, repurchase. And I worked that out through 20 years of what you can do, and by doing lease purchase agreements, either a 3, 4, or 5 year, you can come up with a schedule. What I plan to have before I leave is a suggested model. I'll review it with everybody. You obviously do what you will, but I don't want to just walk away and not have something there. But it will require you to maintain your investment in the vehicles to realize those savings. And if you don't invest them, you're gonna end up going back to a lease, or contracted service. You'll pay more money for it. The equipment won't be as good, and satisfaction will be low.
And I think another advantage of that is we were kind of discussing that the other night after the board meeting, but is the fact that budgetary wise, it stays pretty constant. You're not buying 5 buses and then no buses. And so the effect on the budget is pretty consistent year to year, and it's easy to kind of quantify the changes in that. But if you're doing huge purchases and then no purchases, the public says, well, how come you're going up this much? And this way it just stays pretty even. The effect on the taxes is pretty consistent, and I think that has proven to be a pretty good way to do business for us. Since I've been here anyway. So, something to keep in mind as we move forward, and I think that's something that our public appreciates.
We seem to have a lot more control too when we did when it was under contract. We have control over that, so everything, so that's a big.
With all the responsibility that goes with
Yeah,
it,
but we've got good people.
and there was conversation around investment in electric buses. There are grants available out there, but it's not feasible with our side of the district and what we're traveling.
Yeah, the board member that brought that up, she had been to the conference and had attended a number of the presentations around that, and she was putting it out there just as a, what do you think? Type of question, and I think overwhelmingly the response was that none of the communities were really interested in that. It didn't fit the demographics of the community. They wouldn't have enough mileage to make the multiple runs they make back to back in the morning. It just at this time, that the technology wasn't there to make it work for the type of districts that are currently in the collaborative.
Supply and demand on electricity is rough enough around here anyways.
And the other point that was brought up was the capacity to charge buses at various locations is. Yeah. Talking with, Christie Bus, the fellow that brought the one up from, I can't remember, Kennebunk, they had to stop in Gardner and recharge before they got to Augusta.
They can only get
That was an
kind
empty
of up
bus.
to Gardner,
So
which is
there's
not that far.
I would think some big changes in battery type stuff before it would work for us. Good conversation.
The vehicle total, pretty much.
Batteries, if the battery pack goes, the vehicle's total. Currently, those buses right now retailing upwards of $360,000 per unit.
And that's before you do anything. That's just buying the chassis.
Maintain. Yeah.
Maybe someday, but
At
they
this
got.
point, we don't need to take any action on the
Nope.
lease agreement that was.
No, the lease agreement, that's through the collaborative. The collaborative
We
board
wanted to make sure.
voted
we did.
unanimously to enter into that. I'll go ahead and sign the lease, which I will have done next week. So,
Any questions around the collaborative? Okay. Item 4, update on phase 2 of facilities upgrades. Yep. Get my email.
Yep, you're on the, right. I invite Mr. McGuire from the table, we'll make you stand at the podium. Yeah. Cover our roofs. Old chair. So, yeah, Anthony and I were invited up, can you take this to the timeline? It's the bottom second slide. In your packet, you received, the timeline, regarding the, phase 2 projects. And the phase 2 projects would be, as I pointed out in my report, a lot of HVAC. So the Miles Lane School will have a revitalization of that HVAC equipment, which includes motors, shoes,
Complete. Yeah, motor shifts, motor starters, linkages. Things like that. Anything that's worn and needs to be replaced will be, because it's almost like getting a new unit, it's just all in.
and they are gonna actually have hired a company to clean the ductwork, which is good. I'm sure there's all kinds of build up in those after 30 some odd years. And, so that'll be totally recommissioned there, along with, that'll all be under control. So part of the control package that Anthony has access, he has remote control over the heat and ventilation. So we can check to see what the outputs are in every different area. So that's all revitalization of that, recommissioning.
There's 93 zone valves here at the high school that being replaced, and 88 zone valves at the Miles Lane School.
A lot of zone valves. Yeah. And invariably, we deal with 1,000 or more per year that have to be changed out. At the high school, you're gonna do the same thing with the units. So go through and make sure everything's up to snuff, bring it up to speed, which will include doing the high school gymnasium. We have 2 very large air handlers in there. After we get through the winter season, they'll attack those and do the work on those. And this also will include, adding the new, unit for the cafeteria.
Which has never been.
And then a big portion of this work will be at the middle school and the wall. I keep going back to Pink Floyd, and it's the wall. It's doing the exterior renovations, and you can see a map that was provided in your packet. It's also up on the board. They will be doing this, and they've got a complete plan that they shared with us, very thoughtful. And they're gonna start out, their goal is to have this all done by, the end of next summer. They want to get started as soon as possible. In each of the schools, Anthony and I will be sitting down with the principals and talking about, the impacts on your building, and there will be some impacts. But in order to get the work done, there's more work that should be done over vacation. So it's gotta be done while we're in school, but they're gonna be as least intrusive as possible. The work at the middle school, there's gonna be a staging area. Where we have the Connex boxes in the upper right-hand corner of those parking lots. One of those we've cleaned out. It's all cleaned out. It's gonna be turned over to them. So they'll be able to store it and have their own lock on it. And they're also gonna do a lay down area for all the metal siding, the trim work and everything. And it'll all be secured up there. They will be starting off, and you can see on the map, they actually have red lines drawn, a pathway of where the lull is gonna travel. Okay, they're gonna start on the far back, which would be the kitchen area, the mechanical room area, the back of the gymnasium area on the ground level, and on the top level is the upper wall of the cafeteria and the gymnasium. That's where we find the most significant failure. And they're gonna come in and they're gonna work with that, start putting in there. That's their first area of attack. And then they'll work their way around the building as we go. And again, they wanna work with us so it's the least amount of disruption. The blue areas that you see are proposed areas where dumpsters would go. We've already had a conversation that has to be revisited because two of the places they wanna lay dumpsters on are buried propane tanks and buried oil tanks. We're gonna discourage that strongly. And,
Right on top of all those cars, trying to drop off kids.
yeah, and, so there will be some disruption with parking for our custodial staff and our food service staff. But that's the reality, unfortunately. Plenty of parking left away from the building. So again, they got mobilization and they've got 5 sections. The one section that they're waiting for summertime is gonna be the gable ends of the buildings, and which is really impacting mostly the classroom areas. With the front, you see the people on the front, up by where the parent drop off is, and then on either side of the building. So that'll be done more towards as soon as we get out of school. And they'll quadrant off that area for safety. Safety's a big part of this, so Aaron, part of our conversation is gonna be flow of where kids are gonna be able to go, where they can't go. There's gonna be signage on the inside of the doors because those will still be fire doors. They will not block any egress, but people just need to be aware going outside that door, you're walking into the construction area. The company that is doing the siding, they're actually out of Kennebunk, Lewiston area. And they've done schools, they've done multiple schools, they're familiar working around schools, they're comfortable with it. And they understand that they will adapt to the needs of the school. And it's gonna boil down to communication. What have I left out? They got it? Yeah. It was very good companies, again, just as organized as phase 2 as they were in phase 1. And that's gonna make for a smooth transition. The same gentleman who's been the company on-site rep is gonna stay with us right through this project as well. So we're comfortable with him, he's very comfortable with us. So the goal is by the end of September next year, these projects are all done. We've met the requirements of our school revolving renovation loans. And we're gonna have plenty of fresh air in our buildings and need the ASHA codes, which many of the buildings in the state of Maine will not. A long ways with this. The way they pulled off phase 1, I'm sure phase 2 should work out pretty well.
Any questions?
Isn't just the one affected wall, or is it siding for the entire school?
Everything but the masonry. piece.
Oh, okay.
So when you go up there, originally when the building was designed, it was all masonry exterior, right? One of the best. But because the price came in relative to what the state was willing to fund, then they had to go back and change some of the design features, and they went through that. I don't even know what the technical name is. It's press board wrapped in vinyl.
Yeah.
Siding,
One sheet.
yeah, and how they designed the wall system didn't allow for proper moisture wicking.
So we're replacing it all so we don't have future problems with the rest. Okay, great, good.
Metal, it's a metal.
Yeah, it is a metal, it's a heavy metal. And the wall system is designed, it's just not putting metal up against the wall. There's actually air spaces built in, there's membranes, insulation and membranes put in that allows moisture to wick out, but it's impermeable to water.
Good. So. Any other questions around renovations? Moving on,
Thank you, appreciate it. We're on to take tour of dugouts next Tuesday. Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
discussion overview of the MSMA fall conference. 4 of us attended that conference. Abby, Danny, myself, and Alicia. I'll give my perspective. The conference took place the day following what happened in Lewiston. Attendance was greatly affected by that. I would guess about a third, less attendees, probably the same
And
amount.
less presenters.
Yeah, it works out.
And less presenters.
But and then, yeah, and I would say about that many of the presenters,
Real good workshops are canceled.
we're a lot of cancellations, for both. But overall, in my perspective, the conference was very valuable. I attended a number of seminars from Drummond Woodson. The keynote speaker spoke about artificial intelligence, and it was very interesting. And one of the takeaways that I had, he talked about how that if you use somebody else's work in school, we call it cheating, but the workforce uses AI as the next greatest thing because it's productive and it's efficient. And how do we implement that into our school systems? And how do we take advantage of that? And what are the skills kids are going to need to be able to capitalize on that? And he also touched on a number of jobs that are going to be probably greatly affected as AI.
I think that was the tip of the.
He talked about how kids are gonna need to know how to write prompts for these AI systems because they're here and they're being used. And they're going to have to learn to be good editors. And in order to be a good editor, you have to learn how to be a good writer. You can't just steal this information and pass it off as your own. It will not suffice. So his thing was not like, stop teaching the kids, just let them use AI. It was teach them to use AI so they can be successful. I thought it was very interesting.
I'm glad to hear some of those things, because it is a big worry of mine with the AI. That people aren't going to focus as much on learning certain things. They're going to rely on the AI.
You still need your
When
math
there's
back.
still a lot that, well, and to that point, that's a lot of what AI struggles with now is hard facts and hard science. Like if you use GPT to do certain engineering problems, it'll come out with, completely, totally wrong calculations in a lot of cases. And so like kids, they still need to learn the math. They still need to learn how to do things so that they can
It's gonna correct itself.
know what not to tell it to do.
And I think that's where it comes back to writing very good, efficient problems.
Yeah.
Because if you ask it slightly the wrong thing, you will get your trajectory will be off. And you'll get some wrong answers. So that's why another reason to focus on teaching people to write those really well.
But it was thought provoking.
It was.
His presentation. It was kind of like, hey, I hadn't thought of that, but
Yeah.
I can remember years ago, Jim saying that we need to be teaching our students for jobs that are not yet created. because we don't know what type of job they're gonna be ready to do, and this is a perfect example. Who would have thought of that a few years ago?
I don't know, Abby, do you want to give your overview?
I mean, I think that was really my biggest takeaway too. There was a program and I wrote it down, but I didn't bring it with me that I'm gonna share with you. I should have done that the other day. That is a free program. No one in the state of Maine is using it. And what's kind of neat about it, maybe you know if I describe it a little bit, is it's a kid will sit and take a test and input what job they might be interested in. And it says, okay, if you're interested in being a marine biologist, this is where your science is at, this is where your math is at, this is where your language arts is at. And this would be a good fit and you're on the right track, or maybe this isn't a good fit, or if you want it to fit, you gotta work on X, Y, and Z. And so it's kind of a cool thing. I wrote it down and I will get that information to you. I don't know if it's worth using or not, but the keynote speaker mentioned it in a private session I was in, and he said, no one in the state of Maine is using this and it's free to use. Yeah, I should have brought it to your committee too. I completely forgot. I was kind of overwhelmed, but yeah, I did write it down, so I'll email you both.
And I was really interested in the AI stuff too, and I went to a seminar or a workshop that a guy presented, he actually did a video, showed a video of a study they did with students, young students, and took their phones away. And the addiction, the reaction, the behavior of these kids when they didn't have their phones and their devices was quite shocking, kind of alarming. That was one thing. And another thing, I lost my train of thought. They were talking about big tech uses certain techniques to hook kids into social media such as Snapchat, competitions, going so far as if they're going on a camping trip to give their Snapchat account to one of their friends so they keep their streak going. I mean, it's such an addictive through game. They gametize or gamifies, as you said, social media. So it's something that educators and parents definitely need to keep an eye on, because it's their own little world and they're very good at it. And it was something that's going to either be really good or it's going to be really damaging. So that was quite an interesting thing. Yeah, he took, actually, it's not just students, it's adults too, because he and his wife went on a camping trip with the kids, and something happened during the camping trip out on the water or whatever, and she had her face in the phone and didn't notice it. So they brought up the family video at the end, and she said, "Oh, I didn't see that." So it's just so much, it's an addiction. It really is that we need to keep an eye on. It's a social thing, but I also went to Jim's, most of us went to Jim's cybersecurity seminar or workshop, and that was really interesting too. And when he gives his presentation, I got a couple questions for him too. It was really good. I thought the AI thing was definitely the main theme of the whole week.
Right. I attended a number of presentations from Governor Woodson around, a lot of it to do around, school board, interaction with public and some of the challenges that are being presented by that in different districts. I also attended Mr. Morrow's. I think one of my takeaways from that was that I think we as a group understood a lot of what he was talking about, and I think a number of people in the room, it was not on their radar. So thank you, Mr. Morrow, for putting it in a well position in that respect. And also I think the takeaway of that, there's a lot of more to do, but overall there's tragic events in Lewiston, and I think that folks made the most of the conferences they could, given the circumstances of that particular week.
Yeah.
So Mr. Frazier, although was not in attendance with us, he was presented from the school board. I'll read this to you. The School Board Service Award from the Maine School Boards Association presents this award to Scott Frazier, RC 25 school board member, for recognition of 12 years of dedicated service to the state of Maine. Congratulations.
You're a lot younger than us.
No speech.
Only 12 years of service?
I know, I thought it was gonna be like 30.
Oh, jeez.
That was
Wow.
when we
Very
first,
one, right?
first started the RSU, from the town hall, and Miller Clement was the, school board member, and he was recognized for 42 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of service.
There's a lot of history that.
There's plenty of opportunity for folks there. I probably won't get there, but you know, you might, we see.
A lot of years left to go.
Any questions from anybody around the conference at all? I think overall we had a very positive.
I did not win anything. You guys would be very disappointed.
You tried.
I did sign up for everything. I didn't win anything this year, but that's right, next year.
First reading policies, there are none. Second reading of policies.
Yeah, you got 1 second reading, that's from policy JKAA, use of physical restraint is seclusion. We did have some updates, that's why I came to you, the first reading, no changes, first reading to now.
Well, I move that we accept the policy JKAA, the use of physical restraint and seclusion as it's presented.
Second. First and second, any questions, comments around that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Let's go on administrative reports. Christina.
Competition going on there. Pay no attention to Mr. Tripp. You guys have a copy of my report for this month. I did highlight fall malaria testing data for you. And I also gave you the newly released science data from the spring. So as you can tell from the report, our last year's 5th, 8th, and 11th grade students were pretty much on par with what the state of Maine, schools across the state of Maine are doing. Not at state expectations, but most districts are not at state expectations. So we were right pretty much on that same pace. So our 5th graders, we had 23% of our 5th graders scoring at or above state expectations. Statewide, 23% of the 5th graders scored at or above state expectation. Our 8th graders were a little bit lower than the state, 38%, where the state across the state was 47%. And then our juniors, we had 42% of our students scoring at or above state expectations compared to 39% across the state. That's our state data. I also gave you some gifted and talented updates. We do have 13 students who were referred for academic GT services, and our GT selection committee will be meeting a week from today after school to go over the COGAT testing and the referrals to identify students for GT services in math and ELA. And we do have some auditions coming up for music and art portfolios for GT art. Anybody have any questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Tara.
Good evening, everyone. I have shared, I have been really short and sweet board report today. But the highlights that I'll share with you, I participated in 2 different discussions with our new teachers, talking about special education specifically, the role of a classroom teacher in an IEP meeting, reviewing the special ed referral process, where to find the information that they might need in an IEP. I also participated in a Miles Lane staff meeting where we met and spoke specifically regarding behavioral data and interventions. We have a significant number of students who have engaged in some significant behaviors at Miles Lane School. So I've shared strategies, interventions to support students and staff. We also reviewed laws, the new restraint and seclusion updates. And there are specific laws related to student 5th grade and under around like not being allowed to take away recess or in discipline for young students, not having access to out of school suspension with the exception of really specific circumstances. So we talked about all those things. And with the administrative team, I went through and reviewed the data, the number of students in our district who receive special education. I shared that with you all. One important point in that data is to know that we have had 30 students so far this year move in with IEPs, and several with some very significant needs. And that is just sort of par for the course, that sometimes that happens, and so while we are very planful and we try to be really thoughtful, when we have students move in and they have significant needs and they require supports like adult, like a one-to-one or even placement in and out of our district, those things do occur. And they have occurred. So I feel like it's important for you to all be aware of that. Michelle Taylor, our school BCBA, along and other people will speak to the PBIS conference, but participated in that recently, and we have added some new ed tech since the beginning of the school year. So we did another round of safety care training for those new staff members, and we have a very robust list of people now who are trained in all those kind of great behavioral interventions, which is very helpful. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Okay.
No more noon room?
No more noon room? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I don't know about a noon room. That's not.
No.
I don't know what that, I don't know what that is.
That's when you take away a kid's recess. I spent more time in noon room than I did on recess.
Yeah, just like that. No.
Yeah.
So everyone, you have my report. I'm actually going to highlight just two quick things that were not on my report. First, I know we kind of touched on briefly the tragedy that happened in Worcester. I think anytime it's important to know that when that stuff happens, even 2.5 hours away, 2 hours away, the impact that it has on students and staff here. And what I will say is, our staff in particular and our students were remarkable. Those are not easy times to try to educate and have some sort of semblance of a normal day. Granted, it's nothing compared to what people down south are going through in terms of those communities and the people who are affected, but it's tough to go through a day. And I think our staff really rose to the occasion to try to make it as a normal a day as possible. Get my time's up, so but luckily it doesn't happen often, but I think we're always faced as educators to try to be able to provide a safe space for our students to learn. And that's basically creating as a normal atmosphere as possible. And that's not easy to do when there's very few degrees of separation between in such a small state. So I just want to really commend our staff for doing a really excellent job, and our students for really being very respectful and responsive to a really tough situation. And the other thing I just will quickly highlight, and you guys have been talking a lot about the AI that was going on. We did do a presentation, Ms. Morrow and I, to our staff. We know it's here, and I know I touched on my last board report, but we're really, in that situation where we have to look at it. We're going to start banning it. We're going to monitor it, or we're just going to accept that it's here. And how can we prepare our staff to not just try to detect every person that's using it? Universities are trying to do that and they're failing miserably. They're spending a lot of money trying to detect it. And again, like failing students and then finding out that it wasn't actually artificial intelligence. So so we are really looking hard as a staff as how can we increase our knowledge base to do everything what you guys are talking about. How can we prepare our students to be good, ethical digital citizens of the world and be able to use that to better themselves in society?
Have you found any resources, Joe?
There's a ton. I'm actually Christine and I are going to be going to a conference a Saturday in January, put on by Actum. It's in Portland.
Portland.
Yeah, so it's an all-day conference on a Saturday. It's just dedicated to providing us more information and more resources. I mean, the resources are out there and.
I bet you could find them if you just put them in the chat. It was a really good prompt.
You can, it's just like anything, people will, there's a ton of free resources out there. There's a big push by the people designing these AI programs to have it legislated, and so certainly as legislation comes through, there'll be more resources. But just like anything else, there's a fiscal note, like the better resources you want for professional development, you pay for it, or you try to find the free stuff. And you kind of whittle through what is going to help us, what is going to be productive for us. So I think that's where we are at. We're trying to decide which of those resources are going to be the most beneficial for our staff. I really believe that that's going to be the key. The students are going to go find it, right? We know they're going to be there. We know they're already using it. The key part for us is being able to train our staff to be able to guide them in the right direction and how to use this stuff ethically. Because they're going to use it. I mean, that's a given. But how can we help them use it to do good and not evil? So that's kind of what we're looking at as a staff.
Any questions? Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Fisher stole a good portion of my thunder, but again, he did a great job. As you can see, he's really passionate about that, brings a lot to the table and the staff as a whole. That week was really fantastic. One thing I can, elaborate a little bit. We did have a spirit week that week as well, coinciding with the outdoor challenge. So it was a really nice week. We had, all sorts of theme days, a purple and gold day. I survived my first middle school dance, so that was good.
Will there be a second?
We get another one coming up. I may have hit the gritty 2 or 3 times. So outdoor classroom update, that's coming along really nicely. Big thanks to Anthony for all of his work in that. If you haven't been up that way, I shared a few pictures in my board report, but we've added a walkway space to make it more accessible. We've also added a nice storage unit. And again, thanks to Wardwells for all their work and that sort of thing as well. The goal around that outdoor space now is to look at sustainability and how can we make sure that it's set up for future use. So that's really our focus going forward. The fish have arrived. So also, if you want to come up and check out the fish, feel free. We have about 30 or 40 tilapia that are there. So their droppings will be starting to make lettuce before we know it. So really good. So we have, it's really a team effort. The fish piece, we have a automated feeder that feeds it 3 times a day, but we have EL guides that come in and are assigned certain portions of the day and will come in and monitor that. Mr. Burnham has an app to monitor the temperature to make sure that the temperature inside the building is, not getting too cold. And, all that stuff. So really, it's a lot more than we thought, but everyone's coming together and doing a really good job. So it's going to be great. And our kids are really excited to get outside and see the fish and just look at that whole thing and how that's all going to come together. So it's great. And let me see. Looking forward here, we have a couple other things to be aware of. We're starting to do kind of a deep dive with NWIA data. And looking at that, our staff has spent a great deal amount of time on looking at how we can improve upon those scores. So we spent the last few weeks looking at that. Going forward, this wasn't in my report, but we are going to be looking at setting student goals and having the students actually kind of take some ownership and say, okay, how can I improve upon my scores and kind of use it as a motivator. We'll be doing that down the road. And then we do have a principal meet and greet that will be coming up. We have yet to establish a date on that, but look for that in the coming weeks. Just another opportunity again to connect with the community and kind of share some of the awesome things going on and give parents and whatnot an opportunity to ask questions. So look for that in the coming weeks. So, any questions?
Well, if your new camera picks up somebody looking into your quad learning lab like this, that's me.
Okay. Yeah.
Every time I go up there, I come peeking in to see.
You see, his really printed his dog's print right up on the lap.
Do you find you're getting a lot of pushback from students about the goal setting and the identifying, their own weaknesses, their own areas for improvement?
We haven't dove into that yet. We're just kind of looking at, okay, how can we get that buy-in from students to kind of see the value and the motivation behind that?
That's something that's, again, the AI conversation that's been drumming up in my mind is, it was hard enough when I was a kid and the teacher said, well, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time. Now I have a supercomputer in my pocket all the time. And now they've got these technologies that are able to do so much more. I do wonder how that conversation is gonna go and
I'll fill you in certainly.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that it'll go.
But even with that, even with technology, you still need your base.
Well,
your
absolutely.
basic education.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful for the teachers that were able to overcome my objections as a youngster and who did, drill in the importance of math facts and drill in the importance of understanding functions and drill in the importance of being able to create functions for myself and connect the dots between all of these different areas of learning without the assistance of technology in 100% of that action. And I just find that I just worry that the objections now are more closer together and stronger. And that just is a worry. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Darcy?
Okay. Jim, I have a math facts video to share with you, but I'll send it your way later from Mrs. Bryant's class. She wanted to make sure you saw that.
Perfect.
So we've had a lot of things going on in our building. We had, and I was out for this, I wish I was there, but Balloons Over Broadway, based on the book Balloons Over Broadway, the first and second graders had to create a device to keep their balloon creations in the air, and they paraded through the building. Recently, they also visited the Versant Power Astronomy Center and Jordan Planetarium at UMaine. Wing 2 visited Maine Maritime Academy recently, where they visited the planetarium, and they also worked on making wind turbines, boats, and other activities. I guess that was a really engaging trip. Wing 3 wanted to make sure you knew they're working on math facts. And Mrs. DeVeck's class worked on a project around citizenship math involving money and finance, and they learned about earning, saving, spending, and how to donate. Cool. We recently had our elections for student council. We have our new 23-24 student council that were selected. 8 candidates, 8 students were selected out of 22. The speeches were amazing. They absolutely blew me away, all of them. And I did explain to all the students who didn't get in the top 8 that they would help me with ambassador jobs around the building and other fundraising activities and helping me plan assemblies. Our veteran lunch was a huge success. We had over 32 veterans. And if you had, I wish you could all have been there because it would have brought tears to your eyes. Buckbeat's band played some very patriotic music. Kalina, Mrs. Jones's art class just covered the entire cafeteria with patriotic quilt pieces they made out of paper. The veterans came up to me and they were lots of compliments to the students. It was definitely one of the most memorable days I've had there so far. Parent-teacher conferences, parent-teachers have been busy over the last couple of days. Huge success. Constant stream of families coming into the building, which is nice.
Thank you.
Nicole?
Well, good evening, everyone. I just want to start off kind of echoing what Josh said and being on the other end of the spectrum. I feel blessed to work with a group of kids and in a building where ignorance was bliss on that day, and we could have a normal day as much as possible because they didn't know what was going on in the world. So it was kind of nice to just kind of isolate ourselves and kind of distract ourselves from all of that. So, that's how that day went. Can't believe we're at the end of the first trimester. It's kind of flown by. So that ended on Friday and report cards will be going home on December 1st. Talking about PBIS, I attended the state PBIS conference in Augusta last week. Our school coaches went for 2 days. I just went for the 1 day, but the overarching theme was forming partnerships with families to get them engaged with, the whole PBIS ideas. And so moving forward, our PBIS team, different leadership teams will be talking more about activities to increase parental involvement. Because our surveys that went out this fall, all of them, the lowest, we scored pretty well, but the lowest scores were all in parental engagement. So those are the things that we'll be focusing on. Connecting to that, some of the partnerships with the community. I did a volunteer training on November 2nd, and we had 8 people attend that. I thought that was a pretty good turnout. Darcy also did some in October, I think, with, I don't know how many, there was a lot of people that did those sessions as well. So we do have that interest now that schools are wide open, trying to get those volunteers back in. So that will help also with our PBIS initiative. And then the kindergarten took a walking field trip to the fire station. We had 2 groups go, and one group was at the fire station, the other one visited Ian's playground. And while one of the groups was there, the alarm went off. So they got to see some live action. And it was like they came back and like, whoa. It was like the parents or the chaperones were like, come over here. They had to like put them all in one room or whatever. And it was quite, I said, I can't believe I missed that. And I was actually at the ATU meeting, so I get to go to that one. We have some French students coming over from the high school to teach the kindergarten French. I think Christina visited one day and they're going to continue doing that. And I love it because I took French in high school, so I can actually continue with some of their lessons when they're not there. Also partnering with the community at election day. As you know, Jewett is closed. We don't have any students, but all the staff was there. And I can say I love my office where I could see people coming in and out. And I was very impressed with the community turnout at elections. It really speaks highly for the community and taking and doing their civic duties. We're also continuing to work with Aspire, have some really great ideas as far as having visiting artists, theater groups, or animal handlers come in and tell them about their careers. So we're just organizing that and earmarking monies to have those types of activities throughout the school year. And finally, the parent-teacher conferences yesterday and today. I figured out right before I came here, we had about 85% participation for the kindergarten parents, which I think is good. I think there's room for improvement, but also I also take my job seriously that we're the foundation to like getting kids to attend school, to get the parents involved, so that hopefully that will continue throughout. And we also, as part of our education of parents with PBIS, we had the matrices, behavior matrices around the building so that they could see them and put some input there. And also, we're handing out a matrix that was for the home. So expectations and having those conversations at home about behavior expectations there. And the kindergarten is improving with their cafeteria expectations. That's where we've had a little more review. And every kindergarten class had the opportunity to have a special lunch with me in a separate location. And we watched videos about good eating manners and things of that nature. Our second assembly over the kindergarten earned over 1,000 tickets again. So they were very excited to earn movie time during lunch the last day before break. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Kathy?
our biggest excitement is having someone in that part-time position, and especially in the evenings, so. We really feel very lucky. We feel, that this is an exceptionally good fit. And the, employment pool was fairly small, so we're really feeling the love this week. We also did a little dive. We weren't aware, initially that she had enough college that we'll be able to eventually bring her into training to be a backup HiSET examiner and for the medical assistants. That is a 3-hour national certification exam, and there is no one to back me up right now. So our teachers cannot do that because they teach the subject in which they would be proctoring. So that leaves just me, and having the proverbial bus could hit me. You never know. Let's hope not. I try to stay out of the parking lot when they're all headed up for the day. But it's a good feeling to know that we'll be able to get somebody in that position to help fill in that, should something happen, or just to the volume sometimes of medical assistance is such. We try to give them a little more freedom in testing. Other places do them as a group, but it requires that you be exceptionally quiet. You can't do anything like this and have your foot going. And that sometimes makes a difference in whether an adult can pass the test or not, especially if they have ADHD or anxiety. So we have been blessed enough to be able to, we use that fishbowl and we can see one on each side so I can get 2 students in at the same time, but it does make a huge difference. And so having a second examiner will be a big piece for us. The other thing, just really quickly, is the CASAS overhauled. That's our comprehensive adult assessment system. And they did a huge overhaul for the first time in like 15 years last year. And they have done that with math again this year. There were not enough categories or spread for students to show gain. And the other piece that they were behind in, and will be rolling out in January, is the multilingual language learning. And that has given enough assessment that they can show gain, but also when they pass out of that into the regular adult basic education, we lost them because there was no way to connect the two. So it looked like we just dropped a student and had the gain. And that is now going to come over seamlessly and be able to show that the continual improvement for the student. Any questions?
Thank you. Mr. Morrow.
Pretty much everything we covered was in our board report for this month. As you can see, it's people talking about the CASAS overhaul and other items, including the outdoor activities we were involved, top to bottom, which is the theme you hear from me every month. And I know you have some questions.
I just had a question on, it just hit me, maybe you've already spoken on it, but the cost of cybersecurity, is at a certain rate? Do you see that rate going up, or are we staying ahead of it?
We have leveraged existing funds to take care of the level of cybersecurity we're at. This year, you will see a chunk of money dedicated at endpoint security that we have not spent before. It'll triple what we have, which is about a $22,000 gain. But other than that, we are leveraging funds, grants, and other public entities to do a lot of that work for us. So we could easily spend $250,000. I know that there's a collaborative in Southern Maine, which of course is kind of the pattern we always see. It's always Southern Maine, 10 or 12 districts that are hiring a cybersecurity professional out of a company called Blue Spruce in New Hampshire. So that person will spend their full time with those 12 people. Little do they know that I'm going to be the birdie on the shoulder, picking up the little pieces they leave around when they're chatting, and we'll level CISA and some other agencies that are helping out with that.
And is there any? Well, I don't know. We've talked about this online, but as far as AI goes, I'm sure that we've been, not us, but people have been looking into how to detect it.
Yeah.
Is there anything out there that you know of that can detect it within the students?
What we're running in with AI is AI does not follow the algorithm. So it does not have, it may have monikers that they're trying to detect. Mr. Tripp did a good presentation with his staff and talked about a professor that used a tool to detect that it was wrong, called a student a liar and stole materials, which made you get booted from college.
So there's no way to 100% say you can detect it, which is why at our level, we're gonna address it as your work is still your work. You still need to learn. Just because you put the hands on the paper doesn't mean you're successful when you walk out of our doors. So we want to try to change that culture, that mentality, and make sure they're learning so that they can re-express and that they can cite and use tools instead.
Right. And one more thing on the obvious, what's your primary worry right now going forward as far as, you could probably stay here all night talking about it.
Yeah,
but-
so we use the process and we adopted, I think, MSMA as well, is that we look at the when, not the if. So how can we best react? How can we defend ourselves? But when it happens, what's the best action for us to take? And that's where those layers of assistance come in between cybersecurity, CISA, our endpoint detection. So the endpoint detection we're talking about will be monitored by professional service. That is a 24/7 security operations center. So we're bringing people that are dedicated to that, not myself only, who I'm helping, school boards and HVAC systems and all that other stuff. What we are finding, and we're spending a lot of resources and time, is that all these pieces all become internetworked. When internetwork, the whole point of internetworking is that you can touch things from afar or within groupings. We have to run very tight groupings. Our HVAC system's on its own system. It actually frustrated some of the people that were working on it because they couldn't get there to there. So I had to get information from them. We had to move VPN access. We can shut it off in a heartbeat. Then you can authenticate. And it's a pain in the HVAC system, but it also means that no one's in there turning up, maybe burning it out or turning it off, or using it to grab. If someone does get into the HVAC system, they're contained within that silo. They can't then get into our student data system. They can't then get into our other item. But that's a lot of work. We've leveraged E-rate funding to bring on a network engineer at a very low cost, who was very good to work with us. To hire a network engineer for our district, about $86,000 for the first year.
So how are you finding yourself needing more resources like manpower?
So the funny thing is with cybersecurity, it's more about controlling the device, educating the person. The person's always your number one threat and your number one resource. So we just did our cybersecurity training. We released it this week as they had professional development time. And I had several staff members today, ones in the high school come to me and said, we need to get that to our students. So Mr. Tripp and I talked about this, and Stal and I have talked about it previously. How do we get those things in increments, consumable bites to our students so that it's not just another word, they're paying attention, because it evolves constantly.
Right. So that was my question. You haven't been overwhelmed, you're fine.
Well, that's the biggest thing is take the most serious things and make sure they're protected. So we rely on our vendors with a lot of our student data to make sure that our servers are secured, then we move out from there. Any teacher's laptop that we thought was infected or affected, literally put it on the shelf, deploy another one, as long as the data's. So we prioritize and categorize, because we could dump 15 people in here and say we're safe, and then at day one exploit, they call it a 0 day, undoes all of it.
Yeah.
So we really need to be ready to react. Educate to prevent the best we can, but really ready to react.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I'm gonna share so as has been mentioned in some of the earlier reports, there are fire funds being used to bring back some activities. We were able to provide the food for the Veterans Breakfast, which isn't a large cost, but it's I think been helpful to just as things are coming back to know that the first year that there's a source for that, and then we'll figure it out as we go. And with that one, the goal was for students to have the opportunity to engage with the veterans a little bit about the skills they learned or things that they did when they were working in the military. So to consider that as a career option. We survived the return of career fair, Career Aspirations Day. So that hadn't happened since before COVID. We ended up with 77 presenters, which I don't know what there has been before, but sure it was a smaller number than that. So, and also we did have a food issue that came up. So we're very grateful that Tozer's stepped up and provided
almost 90 sandwiches in a very short span of time. Yeah, and thank you to central office and Dr. Tripp and everyone else and Jen Scala who helped run around and get everything we needed. So, it all came together. Lots of good positive feedback and some new connections with community members. Plans are underway, the different schools for using their Aspire funds this year. And we're also looking for ways to share resources. So this is November is career month. It's not, it kind of is. There's like one group that says it is, so we left that. So we decided to do, instead of doing the junior class contest that we've done in the past online, we've expanded that to be grades 9 through 12 can compete this year for the online prize. We'll run that after vacation. Well, this vacation, you know what I mean? And then we've expanded it to the middle school as well. So this year, they're gonna get a chance to get a prize as well for completing tasks. And the elementary schools were all given the chance to pick from 3 different classroom resources. So the students were able to get involved this time in choosing what they wanted for their classroom. So those orders are placed. We've been out a lot this past couple weeks on field trips. High school went to Southern Maine Community College and York Community College on the same day to make that trip feasible. And also to Central Maine Community College. And the middle school's 8th graders they gave an interest survey and then they went to use vans for the smaller groups to go to Thomas and May Maritime. And then larger groups went to a combo of EMCC and UMA, and then another group to UMaine and another group to Hudson. So it's really been interesting just we've done some feedback with the students online, as well as just informal conversations with students and teachers. So post career fair and post these college visits, just really nice to hear kids just thinking about and talking about possibilities with their friends or with their families. So really that culture seems to be more, it's been obvious a lot lately. And then one of our goals is obviously thinking forward. So one of our 4 goals for the year for Aspire is to be very intentional about planning for the future. And of course, we'll keep you all up to date as those plans come into place. And I did have a chance to have an expanded outreach with community members by attending the Bucks Club Next meeting along with Mr. Ruthie last night. It's really nice to be able to hear what other groups are doing, but have them also know what's happening in the schools. And you may have noticed that the enterprise has started running parts of the newsletter when they have space. So they ran a lot this past week.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just one more way for people to have an idea of what's going on. So. Oh, and I used Canva, which I use for all of my communications. Now has their thing, their AI is called Magic, which basically it is, right?
Yeah,
To some of us.
exactly.
And so there is one line in the newsletter that was created by Canva Magic.
Any questions? Thank you.
That makes me think of Jeremy Clarkson's definition of how a turbocharger on a car works. Is that exhaust gases go in, witchcraft happens, and you go faster. And AI is a lot like that. A prompt goes in, witchcraft happens. And then the product plays itself.
That's right. So calendar announcements.
We've got your upcoming dates, it's posted right there. As far as I know, everybody plans on a meeting. And,
I hope so. I don't know.
Any questions around those? Anybody? Everybody good? Everything else? Whatever, motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
This person